This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and MV Welman.
It's the Lekker Rugby Pod, episode 21. Harry, I said to you jokingly that if we were in the old days, we'd have come of age now. But I think we're old men. We've been of age for a while. What do you think?
It was important. It's important in life to take joy in the things that are happy in your life. You know, we know that from being a certain age, that if you're always worrying about building this and building that and what if, you forget to enjoy the people in your life and your family as they are. And I saw a very happy team. I would say a joyous team. I saw Frans Malherbe smiling bigger than I've ever seen him smile, leaping over the barriers at the end to hug some unknown fella that probably from Bedasdorp, some guy that works in the missile research factory. Who knows what he is? And all around the park, I saw the same thing because so many of the boys are from the Cape. And so they had larger contingents of their family. It wasn't just, the boot and the dad. It was like 17 people. And, you see guys really be real when their mother's there. You see when it's their Oma, their tante, they come out, they cry like babies. It's wonderful. It's a cool vibe. It's a different confidence level. There's always been a kind of an intimidating, imposing, we will crush you kind of vibe when you're on the high felt. But it's actually interesting in Cape Town when it does vibe well and we're doing well, there's a confidence that translates globally. It's a better picture for everyone around the world. It's like, you got your Sydney, you got your San Francisco, you got your Rio de Janeiro, you got your Paris, you got your Marseille, you got whatever. We have a better one here in Cape Town. We have everything you've got plus, we can eat whatever you want to eat here 24 hours a day. And so there's a kind of vibe walking the stadium that I felt was very contagious. That Damien Willemse type swag, that Sasha Feinberg, Ngumazulu and his dad, just that whole kind of vibe going on. I thought it's interesting because if you can ignite that, instead of relegating it to second-class citizenship and bring the Cape Crusaders who are now defecting over to the Bokland, bring them along, it's an awesome kind of vibe. It's a cacophony of sound. It's a natural amphitheater with Lion's Head behind, the ocean crashing just beyond. The stadium itself is made for grown-ass men, so your actual arse can sit on a chair and you don't have to touch the guy next to you, which is a welcome thing. It's designed in such a way that all the ladies can go to the toilet without waiting too long.
Or bumping into Rassi.
The concourses are large. There was just a confidence. I don't know how to describe it except that the new generation of player that wants to come in, the Kanan Moody's, those guys, they really enjoy the whole vibe. So I think it's important to ignite that. I think it's interesting for South Africa to have so many good venues now to play. If you want to go statistically, you can go PE, you can go to, somewhere else. But I think in putting them in large media centers that the global press really enjoys and put on a good show, because make no mistake about it, that was a good show. That show will sell. It brought along so many kids in the Cape that maybe weren't into rugby before or weren't in the Springboks, or their granddads or their dads told them they had to oppose. It was just a really happy vibe. And I saw across the team more smiles than you see in Test rugby normally, even when things weren't going right. Even Andre kind of just giving a little grin and a chuckle and talking to a guy who maybe made a mistake, just coming there and talking to him. Grumpy Billy giving Cheslin such good directions. The Springboks really talk, man. They really chat. All Blacks, if you want to look at one thing, and I'll give you this sort of tidbit from being at the ground, they don't talk to each other enough. It's a very quiet team. If I was a young guy in the All Blacks, I wouldn't know what to do. I would kind of need someone to yell at me, bark at me. And Scott Barrett and all the Barrett are kind of quiet guys. Sam Kane is, his mouth's so small, it's hard for him to talk, I think. And even the young guys for the Boks, they feel free. Jaden Hendricks is a yapper. He's a good nine. He's chatting all the time. Sasha seems fine to tell someone like Billy where to go. It's okay. I don't think they view it as I'm a senior and you're a junior. I think there's a good spirit in that camp. And it all comes, let's be honest, from Sia Khaleesi and Rassie Erasmus. The two of them have forged a bond that really works. They cover a lot of ground politically, emotionally, psychologically, rugby-wise. Sia Khaleesi was playing with the kind of nose mashed and smashed that many boxers take 2 or 3 months to recover from, and he was putting that nose in harm's way. Even his try was, I mean, it was a nose breaker. He was tunneling in there, and something's going to hit you when you score that way. And he would not be denied. It was a steamroller try, and I love that he gives the glory to other people. I love that whatever his faith system is, he does that too. Sia Khaleesi is a guy who tries to bring people in. I saw him go to all the people around. So all in all, great night. That being said, I know we have things to talk about the game.
No, we'll get to that just now, but this is more interesting at the moment for me. The one thing that I get about Cape Town, which I think for a change, we're actually getting something right, and that is, you know, those panoramic shots of the stadium and Table Mountain and, the like you said, the waves breaking. And then you go to Ellis Park and it's like Bromfontein around it, and Loftus has got Sunnyside around it, and Durban has got a bit of a rundown beach there. Cape Town is just in another league altogether. And I wanted to ask you, you called it the Grand Slam of stadia because you attended Loftus, Ellis Park, Durban, and DHL. I've got it in the wrong order now, but against the number 2 team and the number 3 teams in the world. And I wanted to ask you, in terms of ambiance, the anthem singing, the whole experience, you know, how did you rate them? I mean, if you had to choose them and they put them in order, how would you rate them? Who would be your favorite and your least favorite for that matter?
Yeah, so I've been to Newlands 100+ times. You know, I played there and I went there a million times. So DHL was a new one for me. I've been to all the other 3 before. So take it as my sample size is quite small, and it's off to a win. But I would say that I've been to a lot of stadiums around the world that are vaunted, like Viva in Dublin, Principalities in Cardiff. The Cape Town walk-up compares favorably with any of them. In fact, it compares favorably with a stadium in other sports. Just the idea that from whether you come from Mully Points, from Sea Point, from Green Point, from the waterfront, you're walking through and around things that are pleasant. You can stop for a beer every 5 minutes if you want to. There's trees on your path. There's things to look at. It's broad and expansive. When you want to get in, it's super easy. When you want to get out, it's super easy. If you want to go take a leak, you can do it. It's kind of a vibe where if you want to just go find a tree, you can do it under there too. And so I think that there's some things there that are sort of difficult to compete with if you're in Ellis Park. In Ellis Park is just, you know, there's a period of time where you just keep going down and down and down into areas that you really probably, if you weren't me, I mean, I think I could walk around most places and be fine. But if you were just a mom and her son and, you know, a teenage daughter, you wouldn't want to walk through there alone. And so there's issues beyond just the game itself. It's almost the fan friendly. I would say Kings Park in Durban is almost too friendly. It's almost like you forget there's a game going on. You're going to forget and be late. Durbanites are classically late anyway. But the whole thing was just like, oh yeah, there's a game. Oh wait, there's a game over there. The huge, you know, grassy car park where everyone's tailgating. The fumes of the meat and the food, it lulls you into a kind of a sleep slumber. You're not even ready for the game. When you go into the game, there's a swimming pool and a beer garden, and there's people that are like their backs are turned to the game. They cheer for the wrong things. There's a alarming lack of rugby IQ in that crowd, and I think it does matter, the energy. Whereas at DHL, even though it's still a place that rewards attacking rugby and it likes a swashbuckling Sasha, Damian Willemse, Chesson Colby type play, it still understands rugby. So in Up and Under, they give you help. You know, they no one's groaning and saying, "Oh no, another kick." Like there are times where you go, "Oh, thank God we kicked." And you know, there's enough people there that have played rugby, ready to play. I almost liken it like if you look at the average person, male attendee of these games, who do they look like? Who do they most resemble? So like the two sort of categories in the DHL are guys that look like Damian Willemse or Sasha, and then guys that look like Peter Steph du Toit. They're not quite as athletic, but same size, dimensions. And, you know, the exact Veldskuna, the exact kind of, you know, sheepish, modest, humble, but also incredibly confident look. Because those are not, you know, that's not cheap clothes they got on, you know, above the Veldskuna. And then you got these like vibey guys that are running around. Like,
when did you buy a Veldskuna, by the way?
Yeah, I'm just telling you, there's stuff people are throwing down now. very like original Springbok special certified, gear, and so that vibe works there. In Durban, it's like everyone looks a bit like Jaden Hendrickson, like they just woke up, and then a little bit like Jesse Creel, and that's it's like muscles, but not necessarily rugby muscles. You look at Jesse Creel and you go, hey, why are you doing that for number 13? It's like unnecessary, right? At Ellis Park, it looks like to me most people are just looking like proper like muscle men, like they coming walking in there, or a bit like ox, just really well fed brews, and guys from all over the Rand and so forth. And then you look to Loftus, and I'm always reminded at Loftus that you're not looking at people who are like you in the shadow of Loftus or next to Affies. They could be from Potchefstroom, they could be from anywhere, right? But there is much more of a fellies without the socks, or fellies with little tiny socks with the short khaki shorts, and arms that just will not fit, yeah, skin kind of looking guys, and also there's like the preacher's son's boys, like Elric Lowe. So you kind of put that onto a mix. And the visitor to South Africa, if you were Irish or if you were a Kiwi coming to visit, depending on which one of those stadia you went to, and which towns and which ones you went to, Loftus is the most intimidating. So to answer your question, it's the least hospitable to the outsider. You don't even know what you're doing. Everyone always looks like they don't like you, but they do. Like if you just actually start talking to them, they're fine. But they have that kind of initial look of, go away, don't talk to me. At Ellis Park, it's just that everyone's so happy to finally get into the friendly environs of this stadium that it's like you're like trauma survivors together. You're clinging together in this steep stadium where it looks like if you even tumbled one way, you'd fall the way down. And it's there's very little to beat that feeling of the heel brow, buildings behind it. The setting is amazing, but just to get in there and to just like find a place to take a whiz. And then, I think that the whole vibe in Ellis Park is almost like a caricature of itself at this point. Like, oh, we're in Ellis Park, so we're going to be all Ellis Parky. I think DHL probably affords the most diversity. And I think that if they can play it up more and say, it's not a place where you come to lose, it's a place where winners come. It's confident, but it's cool. It's a different vibe. I think I'd stack them really at this point, Loftus and DHL on top. And until Ellis Park can do a little more work around getting people in and out, I just cannot imagine anyone from a family from Australia or, I don't know, Ireland having too much of a good time getting in and out of that. And post-match, it's even worse because then it's dark and there's really not a great place to get reception. I always found that both Loftus and at DHL, you could connect with the outside world. You could call an Uber. There's things you could do, and you're not very far in Pretoria from places where you can meet and ride or so forth. So I would say those two. If I was stacking them for the top tests, I would say Loftus and DHL for the foreseeable future, and reserve Ellis Park for different things. But I'd put some money into that, and I'd most importantly put some money around the stadium. Just fan walk zones, safety cleared, directions, signs. It didn't bother me. I was doing a live stand-up post-match in the middle of nowhere, and it was fine. But I couldn't imagine, some older lady walking through the potholes at nighttime with pickpockets nearby.
The one thing I have to say in defense of the Ellis Park people is they spent a lot of money getting it better, because what you saw there is much better than it used to be. They spent millions, honestly, so let's give them credit for that. I was about to ask you, so what made Loftus number one? And then you sort of prevaricated and made them a draw.
Well, I like history. I like the fact that Loftus goes back. I like that it's quintessentially South African in a really deep northern way, and I like the fact that it's authentically northern in its sensibilities. It's the best place to get protein in the world. I mean, if you cannot get protein at Loftus, something is wrong with you. You're stumbling over protein. I mean, every kind of sausage or meat is in your pathway. I just think that there's things about Ellis Park that go better if you know what you're doing. It's almost like a place where people have veteran strategies on how to get in and out, and so therefore it becomes very insular and not necessarily outsider friendly. I have found Loftus in general to be the kind of place that if you just start talking to people and do stuff, it's all great. So even like the Irish guys that were there, they had a good time. I could tell that they were having a good time. By 10 or 15 minutes into it, they had good friends. You know, they were all singing together, having a good time. It's just an easier way. It's an easier place to get in and out of. I just think that it's also properly intimidating. I think there's something deeply knowledgeable about the average fan, the base fan, the core fan at Loftus that really helps the Boks and brings them along. And it's not so much the altitude. We discussed this before. I'm not sure the altitude is as much of a big deal with highly trained athletes that eat well and know what they're doing, and with the Boks from everywhere anyway. But it's more the feel, the ominous nature, the grim, almost silence before the match starts, and then the roar, which just it sustains. Loftus is loud throughout. It just stays loud, and then it gets mega loud. I do think also, to be honest, I think the DJs at Loftus and Cape Town are both brilliant. So they're fun.
Yeah, we
they're
disagree.
Fun. They have good sense. They have good sense of humor. I like how they make you chuckle.
Sitton Cars has a wide selection of vehicles available at sittoncars.co.za and at our branches at Casino and Mainland. With over 30 years of trust and excellence, Sitton Cars is your #1 nationwide dealership. With over 95% customer satisfaction, our hand-picked cars will ensure that you find your dream car from one of the top brands available at Sitton Cars. Sitton Cars, the better way to buy and sell cars.
I wanted to ask you one last thing. You posted something yesterday where you were singing the anthem. What is this? And I love this, I must be honest. Let me put it up front right there. I love the fact that we love our anthems. And even as I'm saying it, I'll get goosebumps all over again, because I promise you, there's not a dry eye in the house when we sing that anthem, either in the stadium or at home. And that to me is something that's changed also with Sia and Rassie maybe. It wasn't like this 10 years ago, 15 years ago. There's something new that's been brewing around here, and I like it. I like it a lot. Your experience of that side of it?
Yeah, it's I posted something, and we'll talk about it another time more deeply, but the idea of coming home, the idea of knowing the blood we walked through to get here, the things we lost, the people that didn't get to see what we're looking at right now. It's sad, but also inspiring. It's almost like the blood of the saints are calling you to live out the mission they wanted you to live. The way that you walk through languages and you sing your way through different tongues and dialects, the way that it's arranged just musically, which takes you onto a crescendo, and then it takes you to another one, and then you go into another one. The idea that it leads to an idea of freedom, whether that's philosophically your idea of individual liberty, or if it's freedom from the past, or if it's freedom from whatever you are trying to get freedom from. I don't know if there's a way to sing that song with people you love around you and people you don't know around you who are hugging you for that day. In particular in DHL, that will be a rainbow of people around you. They'll be gay, they'll be straight, they'll be old, they'll be young. There'll be every mixture of, the Cape color to Cape Malay to people of color to mixed, whatever they want to call themselves, and you're going to be hugging and kissing each other for about 2 hours, and groaning in misery with them as well when something goes wrong. And I think the anthem is just setting the table, like, hey, this is a family feast. We're all from different places. We're going to have different things to say, but right now we're going to eat this curry and rice. We're going to have this table set for us. And it's almost like we're saying grace. And but maybe because of the way the song is written, and because people have bothered to learn the words, which is a big thing too, and not many countries would have done that. I just find that we cry, but also we look at each other and we smile. And there was a family behind me in particular that just kept engaging with us. And I feel like it was because of the anthem. I feel like they saw me differently than maybe they would have saw me if they hadn't. if it was just me fist pumping and talking about we are the champions and Murala and stuff, maybe they wouldn't have felt so kind towards me. But we had such a good time, and I think the anthem is just a signal that all the other hype and the DJs and all the other stuff is over, and it supersedes the haka. It's bigger, but then it also makes you want to honor the haka as well. And one of the high points of the entire experience was how we shushed everyone who was starting to do the ole ole ole, which is such a, I don't know, a weak, tawdry way of trying to mar someone's stuff. It's much more ominous and confident. It's confident to not drown out your opponent. It's confident to hear your opponent and say what they want to say about slitting throats and bashing us with clubs, whatever you want to say. Let's do. I mean, it's symbolic. I mean, no one's really going to do that. But I liked it. I liked how it got still and quiet when you have that many people spontaneously get quiet. My friend Matt Pierce was calling before the match to do that. He was, sort of beseeching people, let's not do the noise or the ole ole or try to like drown it out or boo. What about the cool vibe of actually just listening and standing like the Boks do, like paying attention and saying, this is important. And a match is better when your opponent is scary. A match, an occasion is bigger when you give it respect. Rivalries are the thing the sports build on. If we don't have a rivalry, that's kind of a boring thing. So let's honor the rivalry. And I felt like it was one of the great moments. The anthem followed by that. And then just the fact that kids from, was it Millington High, they were there? Just this massive choir. The whole thing just felt like we had set the table under the shadow of the mountain with Van Hunks and the Devil smoking a pipe.
Some more credit to Rassie there. No? I mean, Tony Brown went to great lengths to explain to the Springboks what the haka means to the Springbok rugby players, I think. And that, again, it takes rugby to another dimension. But before we're going to start talk rugby just now, people, I promise. But I wanted to say one more thing. I feel sorry for every person that gets the honor of singing the anthem after that lady, KB Matsuunyani at Loftus, because she really set the bar very, very high. And I must be honest, no one's disappointed after that. I thought they were all doing exceptionally well. But that one where the lady handed the mic to the crowd at Loftus, to me, was probably the highlight of all these anthems.
Yeah, I thought Taryn Lamb was fantastic as well. There were some great recording stars in the house. I mean, there's no shortage of talent in South Africa in general, but in the Cape in particular, there's just so many people who may not even be into rugby, but if you could just enlist them. And what's interesting about it is, just on a ratio basis, I'm around Pretoria, everyone's talking about the rugby. I'm in Durban, no one's talking about the rugby. I'm in Johannesburg, it's like, 50%. In Cape Town, it was just the same as Pretoria. Everyone, even people who were All Blacks fans, were on the top of the mountain or in the gardens or down in Simonstown or on, just out and about in the bars. Everyone was talking about it. It didn't matter if you actually ever played rugby, were into rugby before, you knew this was a big deal. It had been so long since the Springboks had trusted us, Cape Townians, to host a match and not stuff it up. There was so much care being placed. I was in the Kombuis in Boerkaap, which is that looks over the city. And it's a Muslim family that, you eat in the kitchen, which is called the Kombuis in the area. Like, no one has to even say what it is. They know what it is. And you have such a beautiful meal there, but everyone in there was talking about the rugby. Like, everyone. I mean, I was just walking around, just kind of overhearing people, and it was so massive. Again, Matt Pierce, I'll refer to him. He called me right after, post whistle, like I'm talking 5 minutes, and just said, that was one of the hardest matches I've ever commentated on. And I said, why? And he goes, because we had so much invested. We didn't want to let the country down. We were waiting for you guys up north to make fun of us and say, we give you a test, and then, we get trounced by the All Blacks because of all the All Black support, and it's too fun, and no one trained hard enough, and you were all at the waterfront, or you were in, hanging out on the beach in Clifton. And that didn't happen. It was serious, Cape excellence in terms of putting the thing together, but also showing people that there's a way to put on a world-class event I'm talking about entry, exit, ticketing, the ease with which the ticketing was read, how many people were there ready to receive you, the services for handicapped people, the people that were like escorting you, like, concierge, hi, some older lady, and actually help her in. The thing couldn't have been better. It couldn't have been better. And I would think Rassie would go away from that thinking that was one of his big accomplishments, is bringing high-level test rugby against our greatest foe back to Cape Town. Because who doesn't really, in your heart of hearts, want to have that? I mean, you want to have that because that is one of the great, welcoming destination cities in the world. It's, routinely in the top 20 or 30 places to visit in the world for any reason. But rugby, it's such a heartland. If you look across the team and you say, at the end or at some points in the game, you have Andre, you have Damien Delende, you have Chesson Colby, you have Fasha, you have Peter Steptoe, Eben, Frans Malherbe. Like, these are just Cape boys who played together for a long time. And Thea Khaleesi, that's where he really made his mark. So it was beautiful, I think. And also the way we did it was so classic South African. So it wasn't just a razzle-dazzle 35-32. It was All Blacks didn't score a try. I love that. There's nothing better than that. You know how long it's been since the All Blacks didn't score a try in a test? They said it was, 7 years or something. It's very difficult to shut them down from scoring a try.
Just before we start talking about rugby, I wanted to say one last thing. This is the reason for the existence of the Lekker rugby port, this north-south thing that you were just referring to. The true centers of rugby in South Africa. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. And the beauty comes when you unite it together, because the idea of Elrich Louw and Peter Steptoe, combining on a hit, a double tackle, or Eben Etzebeth and Jasper Wiese coming in hard. I mean, it's just, who can deny that? Who can deny the fact when you see Lekanyo Arm, just putting on a move, and then I don't know how Cheston Colby is almost untackleable at times. I mean, it reminds me of a pinball machine.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because it's not just that he's quick. The other guys are quick. Mark Talea is quick. It's more that, like, he's got a low center of gravity, and it's like tackling a very giant bowling ball or something. He just doesn't seem to be able to go down very easily.
Sitton Cars has a wide selection of vehicles available at sittencars.co.za and at our branches at Messina and Mainland. With over 30 years of trust and excellence, Sitton Cars is your #1 nationwide dealership. With over 95% customer satisfaction, our hand-picked cars will ensure that you find your dream car from one of the top brands available at Sitton Cars. Sitton Cars, the better way to buy and sell cars.
Right, at last, time to get to the rugby. And Eddie, the one thing that I noticed about this game specifically is, once again, we had to come from behind. That seems to be a little bit of a trend emerging. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's true. However, this time the come from behind was much different. It was pretty normal. If you look at test rugby between the All Blacks and the Springboks for, 60 years, pretty normal for a halftime score to be 9-3, 6-3, 3-6, 9-6. Like, it wasn't out of hand. And Andre Pollard's job was to steer the ship in such a way that we were not behind when he left the field, and that's exactly what happened. When he left the field, Boks were up. So he actually steered the ship exactly right. I think when he went off and Sasha came on, it was 13-12 or 13-9. No, sorry, it was 10-9. So, he gave it over to Sasha and said, "Now you get the experience of bringing it home." The first half was more of a cagey affair where you had a lot of forays almost. You had sorties, but no one was really able to stamp their authority, which would have been very unlikely anyway. It's not really the way these things go. There were scrums that were going the Springbok way, which were dominant, but there were lineouts that were going the New Zealand way. So those kind of negated each other. You had a lot of kick tennis, which was interesting, I thought. I felt those kick exchanges were interesting. Sometimes they went New Zealand way, sometimes they went Springbok way. I would say that the kick retention, which is a big stat, we always talk about, when I work with teams, I talk about which would you rather have, which 5 things would you rather have go against you? 5 scrum penalties, 5 interceptions, 5 line breaks, 5 kicks that were regained by your opponent, their kicks that they take from you. Just kind of work through those things. And because it helps you when you find out what your greatest evil is to guard against. It's like making a financial portfolio, right? So what do I have to avoid when I'm 25, 50? So in a rugby match, the same thing. Early doors of the rugby match, there's things that will kill you. And then later on, there's things that will be worse. But one thing is for sure, it's really horrible to lose 5 lineouts. Really horrible. Because then your base, your platform that you're looking at when you want to say, oh, kick to the corner, oh, maybe not. And then you get into 2 minds, and you don't want to be in 2 minds in rugby. But for sure, people putting up 15 kicks and then regaining 5 of those is pretty deadly. It's actually worse than 5 charge downs. Sometimes charge downs, the ball goes anywhere. Sometimes it leads to a line break for you. Someone scoops it up like Chess and Colby in a loose ball, and they're off to the races. But every single time someone regains a kick that they kicked into your defensive structure, you're not really practicing that very much. And everything looks weird. It's like you said before, it's very unpredictable. When the ball starts bouncing around, if a ball touches the ground twice, oof. I mean, who knows where it goes, right?
And it did this weekend, man.
Right. So I think there was a lot of that kind of sort of kept the Boks in, because I felt like Talea and Reese, and to some extent Will Jordan, replicated their bad form under the high ball. And more than that, it was just a lack of organization. Will's not a very talkative guy. I'm not sure he's the boss back there. Siva Reese barely speaks. And Mark Talea is one of those sort of silent assassins. So unlike on the other side, where you have really literally yelling in such a loud voice that we could hear him from row 8 in section 115. I could hear Billy talking to Cheslin and saying, Chessie, and he was giving him exact dimensions, 5 paces back, 3 steps out, that kind of thing. And almost invariably, that's where the ball went on an exit kick. Cheslin was like, okay, there it is. Thanks, Billy. So I do think there's a lot of those kind of, a guy who's been around, seen it. It's like golf, just someone who knows, a caddy who knows where the ball's going to go. So Billy's the caddy of the team now. He can tell you which club you need. I think from the first 15 minutes, where it was just 0-3, it was 2 big scrums, a kicking duel, and then it was 2 yellow cards. So the big news in the first 15 minutes was 2 cards. And I'll leave it. My first big point about the game is, the one bad thing about 2024 is now we're a carded team again. The Boks were really avoiding that. They had got rid of that label. We're not really heavily pinged. But this game, it showed, it just shows how much work you got to do. For sure, if I said 5 cards, that'd be the worst. So you never want to have 5 cards in the game. It just makes all your systems and formats wrong. So then from 15 to 30, that next part, we went to the corner, but there was a cane jackal. There were 12 phases on attack. There was a short line out with 6 phases. It was kind of back and forth, but nothing really happened. And I kind of compare that to a boxing fight. 2 heavyweights trying to figure out where they're going. But yeah, I think with Cody Taylor going off for an HIA and then his replacement stuffing up the line out, it just felt like that next phase was just no one knew where to go, and it was still 3-0. So half an hour in, 3-0, the card guys come back, Visa and Reese, and it just feels like, okay, now we can play rugby. Like the rugby just starts somewhere around 27 minutes when there's a scrum and a crash ball and a penalty. And I thought from that point on, from 30 minutes to 40 minutes, the Boks really started showing more stuff. And it was just prevented by timely jackling by the Kiwis. The All Blacks seemed to get so many jackal turnovers. And even though they were also pinged and we had a shot at goal to go 6-3, every time there seemed like a really promising 10-phase, 8-phase attack, it was snuffed out. So I don't know. It was very difficult. However, when I went at halftime and just got some, 4 or 5 more beers for the group, I felt like this is okay. It wasn't like being behind at Ellis Park where you thought, no, this is the time is getting away from us, and a 10-point lead's too much. It never got to that point. It felt like we were always in touch, and with the scrum, and with the Allende in particular always having go forward ball. And I'll just say something here about the overall schematics of this. New Zealand's not getting very good meters per carry. They're not getting good meters per carry before contact or post contact. You look at it, they're getting about 3 meters per carry, and South Africa is getting 4. And before you say, oh, that's just 1 more meter, that's literally like 33% more from every carry. And what that means is, and they're using Artie Surveyor to be their primary carrier, 60 carries. Our biggest carrier is Peter Steff, and he's at 47 for the championship so far. So no one's worn out. It's everyone's carrying. There's so many carriers on the Bok team. It's not like saying Satiti and Artie, you got to carry. Sam Kane's not a carrier. Barrett's not a carrier in the pack. Tupovai is okay, but he's not as dynamic, and the props don't really carry that well. So, I think I looked at it and said, yeah, this is going to go our way in the second half, because we can keep doing this, and sooner or later they're not going to get the jackal. When you rely, if you live by the jackal, you die by the jackal. So in the crowd, really like 3 rows away from us was Dion Fourie. And I kept thinking during the match, in the first part at least, I thought, oh, Branus will be perfect for this day. He'd be the one who could help us secure our ball, because we didn't have a proper jackal opposition. And Sia's playing out so far now, and Peter Steff's also playing a roaming role. So it was up to Visa to be that guy, and that was a lot to ask of him. So I think in the end, going to halftime and thinking about it as kind of a 9-3 match, it felt about right, but I wasn't worried. One word about Pollard as well. Pollard jackaled. He actually jackaled the ball. He attended about 3 rucks in a row. He gets stuck in. I think I look at Sasha and say, Andre is the perfect mentor for him. I don't feel like it's a big controversy or who's better, who should be the 10, who should not be the 10. Those 2 guys seem to like each other, number one. They get along. And I just think that Sasha's looking at Andre and saying, that's a professional. That's an ultimate professional, because he's not just playing, glory boy, angel stuff. He's also getting down in the trenches and doing some devil work.
You mentioned the turnovers. The breakdowns, we were punished. And I spoke to Andre Pretorius last week, and he said to me, I asked him what you said now, but Sia and Peter Steph way on the edges, and it's all up to Visa and maybe the centers or whatever. He says, no, it's everybody's responsibility to start jackling now. But that doesn't seem to be working that well in practice. You don't concede 11 turnovers if your entire 15-man squad is actually trying to jackal. That's not working. That's a problem, don't you think?
No, I think that's right. Well, I think that was a good show, by the way. I listened to that. I think that's the design is, as he's saying, I just don't know if it's fit for purpose, because of the way so much of the first attacks, like, phase 1 through 5 is from big forwards. So what are you going to do? Have, Jesse Creel somehow get involved in that? You don't want Jesse Creel anywhere near those. You want to have, stopping power, chop tackle, maybe the golden rule of a 3-second tackle, where I tackle you, but it takes 3 seconds for you to get down to the ground. That way I've held you up enough. I listen to the ref. He says, no, the knee touched the ground, but I put you down then. My defensive line's all set up. And when we're attacking, we want to have cleaners come in where they know they're inside or outside. So I just think that it's bedding in the Tony Brown attack. That's all it is. People are now in different spots than people were used to. So for Frans Malherbe, let's just take him, because he's just a guy who has to clean. He makes his tackles, but on attack, he's cleaning. He's going to carry 3 times, 4 times. And every time he carries, he's looking to get to the dirt as soon as possible, right? He's just finding the other guy's shins, getting in there, and presenting. He never gets jackaled. But he's supposed to be the anti-jackal. He's the lion hunting the jackals. He's the guy going to catch the hyena and flip him. So if you don't know where those are happening and you're more than 5 meters away, you're not going to get there. A guy like Ben Jason Dixon or Peter Steph could probably get there. Long strides, quick burst. But you cannot say to a prop, hey, Ox, you have to get 5 meters to a clean out from the wrong side. So I think it's just familiarity. I don't really have a worry about it long term, but in this match, it really cost us And because when you look at the first 40, and I watched it again more like soberly, and that should have been a draw. That should have been 12-12, 9-9. And it was purely down to ball security, which was corrected coming out of oranges. So then you see from minute 40 to 50, a different ball game. And then it just gets better and better and better around ball security and timing and kicking in our own terms. There was an urgency on the clean, and it was extremely exhausting for the All Blacks. They were the one gassed. They were the ones doing the breaks. They were the ones prolonging the breaks, doing the shoe tying, hands on hips. Also, Razor was keeping people on like a long time. Some IT Williams was on forever. So I think it's like I said, you die by the jackal as well. Jackling is a very tiring thing. It's very tiring to have two people attending a tackle and a third come in and try to jackal. It also presents holes, which in the end emerged. Like in the end, on Sia's try, it was around the corner, around the corner, around the corner, around the corner. And every time there was probably one All Black that didn't fold enough, and they didn't slide, the slide defense. And in the end, it was caught out. And you could see that almost happening. Like you almost saw it happening before your eyes, and you go, "Oh no, there's no way they can repel this. We're going to have to drop or knock on, otherwise we're going to score."
That's an interesting thing, because I read that they negated our attack by that double teaming, and then the third person, fighting for the ball. But that ties up 3 players, and that ties now also ties into the fact that our Razor utilized his bench. You said just now. The prop stayed on until after 70 minutes. The one prop went off with a yellow card eventually. So the players were overcommitting and then getting tired. And that's what you said. That's what led to the gaps being opened. Is that what you're referring to?
It also tires you out on everything. So on the final lineouts, you have lifters that are tired. I mean, lifting guys on restarts and lineouts is super tiring. And, so you have givens, like you're going to have to do this many rucks. You're going to have to attend 35 attacking rucks and 50 defensive rucks. That's just priced into the equation of your fitness and your training. But if you stay on an extra 10 minutes and then someone says, "Oh, and I want you to lift Tupovai on the critical line out," and your shoulders have to be higher than Peter Steph's because his arms are longer than yours, and he's got giant ham hands. So you have to actually get a little bit higher. That's all on the lifter. And what if you turn your head and you see, wow, there's Ibn Etabeh still playing at 80 minutes and he's lifting. There is no way you're lifting higher than him, even if you're a big guy. So, I think the tiring exhaustion thing. And here's where we come to the interesting thing, which is the whole thing is flipped. The script is flipped. There was an inevitability when you played the All Blacks for us for ages. 2013, we're playing so well, but we always knew they're going to do something. Bowden Barrett will do something and they'll beat us. Or Dan Carter will hit a drop goal in 2015 and beat us. They will always do the smart things. They'll have poise and we'll panic. Or, we'll do something and stupid and they'll do something smart. And this time around, like I said, we're the smarter team. Our players are smarter, our coaches are smarter, and the collective intelligence, when pulled together, using guys like Tony Brown with his varied experience, using guys like Dwayne Vermeulen who's played in Ulster and played different places, and having people so senior, and then mixing that in with this enthusiasm of youth, you can see that in the end, no one was scared to win. Sasha's not scared to win. He's 22, but he doesn't seem to be fazed by big moments. And I felt like the All Blacks called into their shell, and you almost started to think, I don't know if they believe that they're going to win. And followed on from Ellis Park, it seemed like, no, they're actually thinking right about now, oh, the Bucks are going to find a way to beat us again. And that's the narrative you start to see form. Part of that also is because now under Rassi, I think it's 7 wins and 5 losses and 1 draw under his regime against the All Blacks. So that kind of aura of they always seem to find a way, that's done. That's finished. And we cannot even do fake underdog arguments anymore. You have to actually adopt the mantle of favorite, because when the bookmakers say you're the favorite, when the New Zealand press say that you're the favorite, And when all the fans are telling you it's not good enough just to win, we want you to like clearly win. You're the favorites. You know, if a narrow win's not good enough, then you're not the underdog, because underdogs love narrow wins. You know, I think this was just a match that showed it was a departure point. Put another way, if we had lost it, it would have been, see, you're not really number one. You lost one to Ireland and you lost one to New Zealand. So it's all just a big group of teams: France, Ireland, New Zealand, and Springboks. Who knows who's better on any given day? So it was very important with the fact that we gave Kieran that drop goal in Durban. It was very important that we didn't give the All Blacks a win here, or we would have been back in the same boat. This was a very mature win without our best players all across the park. All Blacks will say they were missing a few players like Richie Maunga, Aaron Smith, Brody Retallick, who's the same age as Ibn Etzebeth. But look at our locking crisis. Look at our line-out leaking like crazy because we didn't have the proper line-out setup. We don't have a line-out captain. So Ruan had a real education in a hurry in Cape Town, because that was what happens. You know, if you're calling lineouts at Test rugby, you're going to have a stinker, and I think he made the wrong calls, and then he ended up having to go back into his shell and throw to the front. But anyway, I think that's the kind of game that shows you when you can say, okay, I'll bring on Malcolm Marx, I'll bring on Sasha, I'll bring on Lucanio Arm, and we'll put this thing to bed. That showed confidence. That showed mature acceptance that we are the world's best team. We still have a score to settle with Ireland. Ireland still has an annoying argument that we have to solve, but there's time for that. First thing is make sure that the All Blacks are now our younger brother, and we have assumed the place at the head of the table in the Rugby Championship. Right now, the table tells us there's only two teams who can win the Rugby Championship: Argentina, surprisingly enough, and South Africa. Yeah. And Argentina needs a miracle. But the point of that is the All Blacks are nowhere. They're not in that conversation, and we did that to them. We put them at the kids' table.
Sitton Cars has a wide selection of vehicles available at sittencars.co.za and at our branches at Casino and Mainland. With over 30 years of trust and excellence, Sitton Cars is your #1 nationwide dealership. With over 95% customer satisfaction, our hand-picked cars will ensure that you find your dream car from one of the top brands available at Sitton Cars. Sitton Cars, the better way to buy and sell cars.
When we talked about the team selection, we said last in Ellis Park Test, the All Blacks couldn't close the game out. They couldn't defend the lead. And they then picked a team, and we said, no, with the team that South Africa selected, it's going to be the other way around. We're going to be far ahead in terms of scoring, and then they're going to not be able to catch up. And didn't turn out that way. And that's simply because Andre Pollard, even with his kicking ability, kicked to the corners 5 times and not kicked to the goals. Didn't kick for goals. But having got there, we couldn't take the line out. And if we could take the line out, we didn't do that well in the mauls. Those were two a little bit unsettling aspects of it, don't you think?
Yeah, because I think Pollard did his job. I mean, obviously someone told him go to the corner, and his line kicking is superb. I mean, he really finds that he has balls of stone. But then our line out just completely malfunctioned, sputtered. It couldn't work. I gone in to this game thinking about key matchups, and I identified that Williams and Pollard, and then their replacements, Hendrikse and possibly Sasha, would be testing that back three. That definitely went the way of the Boks. But even if that goes the way of the Boks, if you cannot capitalize it in the red zone and score, nothing much happens. New Zealand's looking at this match in reverse and saying, yeah, but you did in the end score 2 tries. Maybe it was accumulative, but we couldn't score any. we were also in the red zone, and your scramble D was better than our scramble D. And so I think, it's like creating enough opportunities. I've said this before. Don't get hung up on the percentage of completion. If you're creating enough opportunities in the red zone, even if your completion rate's 25%, but I get 10 chances and you get 5, and you have 40%, I'm getting more. So we don't want to get too hung up on every time in the red zone we score so much as, are we getting there enough? So I think that went our way. But for sure in the lineouts, I just had line out versus line out, and I thought that New Zealand actually took us. What's ironic about it is the final play of the match that steals the win was a line out steal. So maybe New Zealand's looking at that too and saying, "Oh, our line out was bad," because in the moment when we really needed to get a line out and launch one final attack, and who knows what have happened, no, we couldn't do it. And that was such a beautiful steal, by the way. I mean, the organization, the big lift, the fact that Eben got under the butt cheeks, he wasn't doing on the back. He pushed up so high, and Peter Steff had such a good ball awareness to come under the arm and not touch him and get scoop it out of the air. And then Ruan Nortje having his wonderful moment of that every forward dreams about, of catching it and scuffing it into the crowd. Yeah, that was beautiful.
Talking about Ruan, Rassie blamed the line-out woes on Ruan. He said Ruan was this week given the responsibility to call all the lineouts. Last week, Peter Steff helped him a bit. Like you said, it was an education. And Ruan is like, I don't know, 4th or 5th choice, number 5 lock at the moment because of all the injuries. I don't want to say he was thrown to the wolves because he wasn't. Rassie is typically honest and he didn't criticize him. He just, pointed it out. But do you think he maybe has got a future still, or maybe when the other guys start coming back, he'll fade into obscurity again?
No, I think he helped himself a lot. I think he did his cause a great deal of good. I think Rassie has shown us over the years that it's a compliment when he singles you out in a press conference to say you messed up. It means you're still in the picture. I think when you're really out, when he just thinks you don't have it, he doesn't even mention your name at all. So I think it was kind of you're in the fold. You're one of the guys at the braai afterwards. You're one of the 30 players gets invited, not the 31 through 50. And no, I think he loves his work rate. Listen, line-out calling is something that Eben's never even mastered, and he's played a million tests. So it's not for everyone. It's a bit like chess instead of checkers, because you have to not be found out. And so I think Ruan is just going to have to do more of it. And I actually think that he'll get more chances to do just that. Archie is still injured, I think, for the rest of the Rugby Championship.
He's in Dublin.
Yeah, there's so many guys that are just walking wounded or just, almost there. I think it's perfect to give someone like Ruan another chance. I do think the All Blacks, there's 2 areas in which the All Blacks are still incredibly good. One is defensive lineouts, and the other one is defensive mauls. And I think the 2 relate to each other. Jason Ryan is a really top coach. He'd be a good coach for us if we somehow needed one in that area. He's got proper discipline, good precepts. I wrote in my article in the Roar this week that the only innovation or new thing or thing we're looking at to copy from the All Blacks right now, the only thing that they do better than everyone else is defensive mauling and at the lineouts. So, yeah, I think Ruan had an education. He will go back and he will be like Victor Matfield. He'll study every single lineout. He'll talk about the double feints, who was moving. Do we need to have more misdirection before we threw? Was it just the timing of the lift? Because when it really mattered, it looked like we could defend their line out, but it never looked like we had banker ball. It never looked like those Springbok tests where you just go automatic, like 2019 World Cup where we lost maybe one line out in the whole championship, the whole tournament. It looked like every line out was a guessing. In the stands, every line out was fear. We were scared. We're like, oh no, what's going to happen next? Yeah.
I want to talk to you about defense. To me, we look less organized than we did in the past on the Jalkny Nabe, and we scramble a lot. But in the same breath, you mentioned the red zone and everything else. We saw an interesting stat this weekend that New Zealand only spent about 6.5 minutes in South Africa's half in the second half. I can't confirm this. I don't want to really put it out there too loudly, but 1 second in the last 9 minutes was in South Africa's 50 where they actually had possession. And that tells you talked about intellect and clever play and everything else, captaincy. That says a lot, doesn't it?
It does, and I'm not sure whether it's a reflection on how good we're playing or the biggest problem facing the All Blacks. The All Blacks seem to be facing this problem over and over. So it's a chronic condition of not scoring in the final 10, 15, and also not even being in position very well. So that's something that they're like wringing their hands over and scratching their heads. To what extent did we contribute to that? Well, territorially, we did, I think, play well. This was maturation as well by two very young 9 and 10, right? So you have Jaden Hendrickse, who's I thought was the better scrum half on the day. I think he was the best of the four on the park. But he's still so young. He's always been my favorite, by the way, on the current crop of 5 or 6 even halfbacks, scrum halves that we have in South Africa. I actually like Jaden Hendrickse's game overall the best because I kind of think of him as a different version of Fourie de Preer in that he's a vision guy. He's got the physical attributes. He wears his socks kind of midway, so they're not all the way down or up, so he looks sloppy, and he always has a very big jersey for him. I think he has 2 sizes too much. He's also a big guy, actually, and he looks kind of sleepy, but he's actually got great skills. I like his spirals much better. I think he hits the mark really well. He led and fed Sasha so well that it looked like Sasha was making breaks out of nothing, but it was more being guided. He hit the second channel, third channel over and over and over. So I do think that allowed Sasha to have better positions to kick from, whereas Andre in the first 50 minutes was like a slip fielder in cricket. Grant was giving him some rubbish, and he did very well to catch those things, by the way. He was getting flipped and doing somersaults in the air. Andre had quite the all-action night. But I do think in the end there was a calmness to the delivery by Hendrickse. Hendrickse sometimes kind of slowed it down. I love this one moment as well where Eben Etzebeth on a turnover ball just stood, knowing that where the position was and where we were and the score line and the point in the game, I don't need to do anything crazy right now. Let me just stand. No one's near me. And then I'll just accelerate into contact and reload, making sure that I got a cleaner and a cleaner right next to me. It was really highly intelligent. Whereas Satiti was sort of running hair on fire, running down blind alleys at times. And so it looked good. And the stat sheet will say, look at that guy. He broke a tackle here and he beat a defender there. Listen, the All Blacks beat a lot of defenders and broke a lot of tackles, but they didn't amount to anything because there was always another tackler. There's a great vision of all the line breaks that the All Blacks had, and there's always 3 Springboks coming at them at pace. And so if you step this one, you're going to get smashed. If you step that one, you'll get smashed. If you go this way, you'll be out in touch. And there were so many, good runs, so-called, but they ended up being pushed into touch or leading to turnovers. So our turnovers were not so much jackals, although Damon Delende and Andre Pollard did jackal. And then Malcolm Marks, of course, does that. But it was also positioning on the field of, okay, so you ran, you got a good little gain there, but you went nowhere because there's no one around you. I thought that the connection in the Springbok defense was really good, but I agree with you, it didn't look as schematic as under Nienaber, who had definite channels. But I think Jerry Flannery will be very happy about the fact that there was no tries against the All Blacks, because I think a week ago he was probably thinking, "Oh, am I the weak point now? Have I lost the ability?" Springboks are still only averaging about 1 try conceded per match, which is proper Springbok rugby.
Something else I wanted to ask you about Grant Williams. He did not have a great first half. He did what Francois Hougaard used to do, took that extra step, and then allowed everybody to get into the game. That put Andre under pressure and everything. And after, obviously, he got a bit of a bollocking at Oranges, as you call it. And after halftime, it was much better. But I agree with you in terms of the overall scheme of things. Hendrickse, for a guy that was out of action for basically 4 months and had 1 or 2 warm-up games with the Sharks, just shows class now. Oozes class for that matter.
He's calm, isn't he? He just has that unflappable Dupree kind of thing, where
I agree.
Like where he looks around the field and he kind of sees where you're supposed to go. I think so a scrum half has to pick good runners, and I love the way he skipped. I think he had 4 or 5 that I saw that he went to channel 3 or channel 2, but the first guy who made himself available for the carry didn't even know it was going beyond him. You could just tell, and it was because the strength of the rope. He has that kind of really crisp kind of pass. He finishes well. His hands are high. He doesn't come up at all. So he delivers the ball from a crouch. The reason why some nines will do the back pedal is because they're not as strong at, like there's a drill you do where you sit on the ground and you see how far you can throw the ball. I'm pretty sure Jaden would be able to do that pretty far, like just sitting on the ground and then see, can you do 20? Can you do 25? Aaron Smith has that, by the way. You can see video of him doing this. I think with Grant, he's more of an athlete, utility player who's definitely a good nine, but he's not a classic nine in the sense that he can, with his bum almost on the ground and reaching down for the ball, can he shoot that ball to the 12 on a very nice spiral? I haven't seen that happening. That being said, I thought that Williams did kick well, and I thought his box kicks landed in awkward positions for the All Blacks. So I think overall, the Williams-Pollard duo did beat the Jordan Reese-Talea group and put them under more pressure than the All Blacks than Dave McKenzie. I don't think he put Willie LaRue under much pressure. And even the time when he did get touched on a catch, it was a yellow card. I also thought that the loose trio was actually kind of an interesting battle. Like you said before, the Jackal went the New Zealand way, but I think overall on the match, you'd say Sia Khaleesi was one of the best players in the field. Peter Steff just cannot seem to put a foot wrong in Test rugby. And Visa plus Elrich Lowe is a carry machine. Almost like you say, Artie Savea is better than either one of them, but if you put them together and you say, you got to tackle Jasper Visa for 50 minutes and then Elrich Lowe for 30 minutes, I think I might take Artie Savea. By the way, I ran into Artie Savea in the airport, and he and Rico Ioane were sitting, and they were a little bit like, I don't know, they weren't really griping, but they were just kind of bemoaning the fact that what's happening right now in Razor World, it doesn't seem North Island enough. Maybe it's all very South Island. It's Canterbury, Christchurch. Every problem is solved by another Crusader, and and look, it's, I hate to mention any specifics. I won't. When you lose a game, it's tough, but they were just saying that the game was there for the taking for them. And there's one thing I will say here is it seems odd to me that the Blues were far and away the best team in New Zealand, and they are committed to domestic only. So it's not like us; we can pick from anywhere we want. But if you're going to be domestic only, and there's clearly a team that's way better than everyone else, and wins going away, just dispatches the Chiefs, puts away everyone in their opposition. And you look at the team that's named, you go, there's not that many Blues, hardly any Blues in the pack. And the Blues are sort of at number 13 and 14, where they're kind of wasted. There's a pretty good fly-off, Harry Plummer, who was a good control guy, like a Dan Bigger, Andre Pollard, Owen Farrell, basically the kind of fly-off that actually win things. And instead, they're sticking with McKenzie, who does seem to have good game, bad game syndrome. And also, he seems to be someone who could be rattled. I mean, that kick he missed wasn't just a missed kick. It was the sum total, I think, of having a really pressurized game. Another thing that Matt Pierce said to me was, Matt Pierce said it seemed like every single engagement, every single ruck, every single line out, every single kick contest was under pressure for both sides. It was the quintessential pressure test where you see who stands up. And should it be any surprise that it was Malcolm Marks, Tia Khaleesi, Damon Dialende, Justin Colby, like Peter Steptoe, these same people that know about stress. But then the welcome news is, and I should mention Ox Inche as well, had a wonderful game. But it also is interesting to see that they gave Sasha a game here, Jaden and Sasha, where it was the opposite of what they normally have to do. This was steer the ship into the harbor. You don't have to do anything crazy. You just have to keep the ball in front of your forwards, and let's play in the right areas. And as you've said, the play in the right areas thing was the key to the victory.
Sitton Cars has a wide selection of vehicles available at sittoncars.co.za and at our branches at the Sina and Mainland. With over 30 years of trust and excellence, Certain Cars is your #1 nationwide dealership. With over 95% customer satisfaction, our hand-picked cars will ensure that you find your dream car from one of the top brands available at Certain Cars. Certain Cars, the better way to buy and sell cars.
When the Springbok team was announced, a lot of raised eyebrows because of Willie Leroux. And you mentioned how vocal Willie is and how he steered things from the back. And of course, you had this normal bunch of people shouting for his head and everything else. Tell us what you thought of Willie's game and his influence on this match specifically.
Well, it wasn't his best game ever, but with him on the field, it keeps the other team honest. They have to respect the fact that he can open up any defense in the world. There's no defense in the world that can actually contain Willie. He's one of those special players. You had 2 players on the field, Beauden Barrett and Willie Leroux, who are literally the best try-assist guys for 10 years. You can go back in 2013, and that's when Bodie runs down Willie in the corner. We all remember that, just slide, Willie, slide, go in the slide. But he thought he had him. But no, those 2 guys are just old foxes, and they know how to do things. Does it always come off? No, but, I saw exactly what he thought when he saw Cheston on the side there, and he thought he had to escape the All Black 13. He had to put some loft on it, and just too much. He was imagining that Cheston was 2 meters tall, but he's always thinking, he's always trying. But then when I see him on the other side of where he positions himself, it's so good at organizing. So I'm not going to say that Willie was responsible for the fact that they didn't score any tries, and that a week ago it was 3 or 4. But I'm going to say that he helps people uncover. He's just so vocal. He's like having a coach on the field.
Mm.
And so, listen, guys, you can love him or hate him. It doesn't really matter. If Rassie picked him 56 times, which I think he has, there is no doubt that Rassie has faith in him. A fullback choice is, like I've said, an alter ego choice. It's an insight as to what a coach thinks about himself and the team. So whether it's Fassi, Willie, or Sasha, these are all very controversial guys, and they're going to make big mistakes. they're going to do things that drive you crazy. They're also going to be able to do 3 or 4 things in every game that no one else could do that are wonderful. And over the balance of Willie's career, it's, he's responsible for the majority of the points Springboks have scored during that time. Let's just be honest. In terms of tries. Yeah.
Now, Rassie, I think, would have made a good CEO. CEO is a psychopath, isn't it? To a degree. And I don't mean it in an offensive way. Sorry, Rassie, don't take me out in the next press conference, please. I mean it in the sense that you're single-minded, focused, not a lot of empathy, if you know where I'm getting at. But one of the things, he's good at man management, he's good at lots of other things as well. But something that is now proving to be good at as well is succession planning. Bringing Andre into the fold, so that he can mentor Sasha, Willie there, he can mentor Fassi, Damian Willems is still coming back. There's a long-term plan to everything. We're going to talk about it later this week as well. But just talk to me quickly about this aspect of the Springboks development, is the succession planning, which I think is crucial to the success of the continued success of any organization, never mind sports team.
You think about it in contingency planning, where you have a security plan or risk matter, or, like you said, succession. And we all know the old guy who starts a business that keeps telling all the young guys he's about to retire. And he keeps saying that for 50 years and never does. At 85 years old, he's still, running things. So who knows where Rassie will go long term. But I think he is well aware of the life of a rugby player, the short career, the goals you want to have within that career. I think he's very well aware of everyone's ages, but not just their ages on paper, but their true age. They're like, some guys are just young. I ran into Schalk Brits at a youth tournament this weekend, and the guy looks like he's about 25 years old, right? And then you have other players like Gerard Steenekamp who look like he's 55 right now. So I mean, you can just imagine him as a retired player already. He's going to go that way. So I think Rassie knows that Andre's 30 is not that hard a 30. He's had significant injury breaks. He's got to take care of himself. You look at Eben Etzebeth, he's the kind of guy who takes care of his body. So you could see him playing to 36, 37. On the other hand, I think Willie is, reaching that point where you don't want him to have one more knock. If Willie had another big knock, I would almost say it's really important for someone to talk to him independently of rugby and just say, My brother, I know you want to get to 100 and all that, but this is important stuff. I've been impressed by Rassi's ability to see into immediate future. I don't know what he's like on long-term planning, but he seems like he's really good at 5-year, 3-year planning, which is an art unto itself. It's like planning property needs. But the more I think about Rassi, and I do think a lot about his ways and what he is, I'm like a Rassiologist now. I feel like he reminds me of the philosopher George Hegel, the German philosopher, who talked about the first man, the first Homo sapiens, and how they had to make a decision, really basic. Do I want to be free or do I want to die? And he called it the red-cheeked man. The red-cheeked man is someone who bristles at the idea of succumbing and capitulating, adhering to societal norms and mores. He preferred to be dead, so if you try to enslave him, he'll just take you both into the next world, but he's not going to be someone who slaves for you. And I think that Rassi really looks for players like that. Sometimes they're quiet, like Frans Malherbe. Sometimes they're loud guys, like Siya Kolisi. And those two guys love each other like brothers. Who would have thought that? Siya Kolisi and Frans Malherbe. How would they become brothers? And so I think he's built a team of red-cheeked men, if you want to say it, the Hegelian man who says, I will not stand down. I will not surrender. I think Rassi was upset about the surrendering nature of 57 nil, the embarrassment in Ireland. And so when I think about his succession planning and why he picks certain players like Gerard Steenenkamp or Elrich Lowe, what does he see in these guys? They seem disparate. Like Afella Fassi and Elrich Lowe don't seem on paper at first glance to be similar souls, but there's something about, I think he likes, maverick personalities. I think Rassi likes guys who can take Rassi, who can handle Rassi. And I think one of his first tests is, can you handle me? And he puts you through that. Even if you're a journalist, he wants to call you haphazard or whatever. He wants to see how you handle it. He's not that mad at you. I think he's okay. I think he wants to spar a little bit. So I think he's building a team that's resilient. And the one thing he will never put up with is someone who surrenders, who pouts, who sulks, who withdraws, who goes into a shell. That's the one thing I think he doesn't like. Everything else, yeah, he's got 2 big teams. I read this thing today in the New Zealand press that talked about how far ahead he is of Razor because he's already Rassi's built 2 teams that are equally, you could pick a 15 and a 15 and you wouldn't know who would win between those 2.
All right. One last thing about the Springboks before we talk about the All Blacks briefly. Sasha came on. You said he had to play another role, different role, finish it out, not to be so flashy. And to me, he didn't have his greatest game yet. I don't think I was wondering if maybe he carried a bit of an injury. You're thinking?
He did have a lot of strapping on. I saw that. It was the hardest role for him to play. I think he was being requested by the coaches to show that he could do the other thing. That he could be the custodian, that he could lock up the doors and patrol and put it to bed. Because being a Bok 10, one of the marquee positions in world sport, one of the, you're going to catch the most grief if you're in the 10, the box. You just are, because sometimes you're going to be executing a game plan that's not flashy and not interesting and not exciting. But it was the one that won. It was the thing that won. And he didn't have to do everything perfectly. He just had to, like I said, be Hegelian's red-cheeked man. Never put his head down, never go into a shell. He kept trying things, even the things that didn't come off, like the intercept, kick that he did. There were other moments where the outside boot for Chesson Colby on another night that sits up and he runs in and he's the toast of the town and he's the darling. He keeps defenses guessing. And I think Rassi likes unpredictability and that FU spirit more than anything else. I think that's what he really loves, is a guy who will say, even it didn't come off this time, I'll try it again, and this time it'll work. But I thought there was a critical moment in this match to me, and it came back to defense. And it was where the penalty kick bounces off the poles. And Geordie Barrett, tall Geordie Barrett, claims the ball for the All Blacks. And he's literally 2 meters away from the try line. And at that point in the match, I think it was around, I don't know, 70 minutes or so, it felt huge to me. I mean, in the grounds, it felt huge to me. It was like the one moment where they had made a foray all the way down, and you just thought it's only a matter of time where they do the round the corner, and get over. But the next 2, 3 phases, they went back, 10, 10, 10. By the time they were reloading their attack, they were outside the 22. We had literally kicked them out of the red zone, and then it was just a matter of hard tackling, classic block tackling. And I mention that because Sasha tackles. Sasha is not just running around, being nice water. I mean, he gets like into the tackle, and he doesn't just try to bring someone down by chopping their ankles. I mean, he gets into them. He's a proper defender. But I think you're right. I think he had, I know for sure he sprained an ankle during the match. They taped it up. So I don't know if that was the thing you were noticing, but he just seems like a gamer. He seems like a guy who's got plenty of game and that natural maliciousness of wanting to win. He doesn't want someone else to take away his party.
But before we talk about the All Blacks, I want to talk about the All Blacks and the Australians basically at the same time, because they're going to be facing each other now for the Bledisloe Club, and especially Australia's on the back foot. I mean, they got a hiding like anything this past weekend. Just briefly looking at the Springbok squad going to Argentina, Rassi's already said he's going to split the squad. It's already been announced internally. Those guys are going to go to Argentina, and the other squad's going to play them in Nelspruit. What do you expect from the guys going to Argentina? Maybe Nicolas Janssen van Rensburg, Salman Murat, Mani Lebok, maybe? That's their thinking, I would think.
Yeah, so I think you and I have learned a long time ago not to claim that we can predict Rassi's brain on some of these things. I could see him trying to invent pressure. I think he likes to do that. So he could take a squad and say, I'm giving you, like, if you could just win, even if you win by 1 point, I mean, win the championship, like, make it feel like the championship rides on you, Hey, whether it's Ben Jason Dixon back in the fold, like, get the guys who want redemption. And maybe like maybe Kitshoff goes over there and says, okay, this is your time to reestablish yourself. Because maybe hey, Kitsy, maybe you're losing your spot, like, some mind games that are good. But heat pressure on that first one against Argentina, knowing that you always have in your back pocket the ability to put 1,200 caps now, whatever it's gone up to, on the field to close it out. But I can see him doing that, putting like 5 or 6 or 7 guys in there where you say, you're playing for your spot. You're playing for your spot in the squad. And I am saying that we have to win the championship this week, but it's on you. And I want to see how far you can go. Yeah.
That's quite tough. I mean, yeah, it's going to, what's the word? Separate the men from the boys. That's actually,
exactly.
Yeah, I like that approach. I actually had a nice comment from somebody in Argentina in Spanish. I had to go translate it. And he said he's so excited, he can't wait for this. 20 years ago, they were watching the Tri Nations on TV. They would never have thought to be able to, in this position, they have beaten the All Blacks, beaten Australia, not just beaten them, walloped them. And they can't wait for the Springboks to arrive there. For them, it's their most obvious rival almost. That's their rivalry that they cherish the most, South Africa versus Argentina. And the passion, he was talking about the passion. We don't understand the passion the Argentinians have. And I was wondering if you're going to send a young team there with all this pressure on them to Argentina, which is typically extremely hostile. We know that. You watch it on TV as well. You never get the sense of occasion because the sound is bad. And I think those guys are going to feel terribly isolated. It's going to be a test of character, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's great, though, for young guys. First of all, I think Rassi knows that some of his older players needs a rest, a sabbatical, a regroup. And so I think if I had to guess, he'll have an experienced bench, but he'll try to put some people in the starting lineup who need a proper chest, because this is the kind of thing you live for. And I just think he knows he's got house money to play with, that all he's got to do is be okay in that first one and then close it out. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't even put it past him to think it'd be more dramatic to close it out in the final one. I don't know. But I looked at some of the stats around, 4 rounds in, the stats start to have more meaning. And interestingly enough, the Springboks and the Pumas are the ones who scored the most tries so far, 14 and 15. There's a clear style difference between the Super Rugby team. The New Zealand and Australia are throwing twice as many offloads as Springboks in Argentina. And what's interesting too is that one of the Springboks that we just talked about, Ben Jason Dixon, who was doing really well, basically got yanked because he threw an offload. He tried an offload that wasn't on. So there's a difference there. On defenders beaten, you look at Argentina and clean breaks. Argentina is also developing lots of clean breaks. So I feel like it's interesting. Both Argentina and the Boks are very similar teams in that their players come from everywhere and play everywhere. And they're uniting all these different theories. But, Chocobaras, Sinti, Malia, Carreras, Bertrano. I mean, like, I'm saying these names and actually everyone knows them because why? Because they're playing at Toulouse. They're playing at, top clubs across Europe. And we see them playing for all the marbles and they can handle pressure. If you couple that with a proper back five with Marcos Kramer, who's a machine, Pablo Matera, who's one of the best rugby players in the world, Juan Martin Gonzalez, who's one of the quickest and best runners of loose forwards, Lavanini, who's well known to everyone in South Africa, the villain, the pantomime villain, and Guido Petti is one of the best line-out forwards on a defensive basis. That's a proper test. I don't think anyone should take Argentina lightly. I'm going to say this. I don't think Rassi takes them lightly. I think Rassi has looked into the crystal ball really well and imagines what a horrible fate it would be for us to walk around here, Windgat, talking about how great we are, put the All Blacks to sleep, and then we get done by Argentina.
Yeah.
That would be embarrassing. But I still think he might play around on the first one, both for health and safety reasons. They do have a very rigid kind of protocol inside about minutes and minor niggles. There were some guys on the field, like you said, that had some injuries that played through them, but there's no need to exacerbate those. I could see this playing out in what Rassi would love the most is to put out a team that has 5 or 6 or 7 guys that aren't necessarily first string, and we still win. That would be his best. And then he would be able to really relax on the final one.
Just tell me, we have to wrap this up, but how did Argentina beat Australia that bad? That's so, I don't know what the word, so comprehensively. I saw lots of stuff about Australia's sort of passive defense, they call it. And Rion had a video that they were just loitering around over there. Nobody was running after the ball in terms of defending it. The Australians now, I mean. And what does that mean for the Australians coming up against the All Blacks? Just briefly.
I don't think even God can save Australia from New Zealand coming up. If I would just judge Artie Savea and Rico Ioane's mood in the airport, they're going to put a proper hiding on their friends, the Aussies. So I will say this, and it's going to sound like an excuse. I know Australian rugby really well, and I love Australian rugby. I love a lot of Aussies. They're good guys. I do think they've had a habit in the 4 or 5 years now of when they start to lose, just letting it get out of hand. I mean, it happened to us under Alistair Coetzee. 57 is a number we just burned in our brains. Rugby is an odd game. I remember there was a game I played, and the sad part was a neighbor's son was in this team, and it was a new school. They didn't have a really organized program very well. They won. It was under the old rules, so 4 for a try. It was 72-0, and it was just a matter of catching every kickoff and scoring a try. Rugby has a very steamroller. It can get out of hand. And when you go back in time and you say, what happened in the first 30, Australia looked like the better team. They were up 20-3. They scored 2 of the best tries that we've seen from the Wallabies in ages. And then something happened, and then they couldn't stop it. And thinking on how to stop it, like ugly the game up, like, okay, so someone's beating me. Let me just make the whole game a complete stuff up. That's what you got to do. And I think, unfortunately, Australia tried to go toe-to-toe with chaos ball, like play sevens with Sinti, Chocobaras, Carreras, Malia, and that was like candy. That was like taking candy from a baby. They just had so much fun picking apart the Wallaby defense. So I wouldn't draw too much from it. It's a bad day. On the other hand, I would say it does dent your confidence. And the last thing you want to do with a confidence dented is to go into Bledisloes against the All Blacks, who are now upset and feeling like they're being disrespected. And I know we were at Ellis Park. You see what can happen when the All Blacks are in a mood, they can just start scoring tries on you quickly. And so if Argentina can do that to the Wallabies, I'm worried about what the All Blacks can do.
Sure. All right, Harry, we have to wrap this up. Thanks for that. That was one of the
Good
best
chat, man.
ones, I would think. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
It'll be good, man.
This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and MV Welman.